What is up, folks? This is Soul with another video, and today we're going to do a little bit more War Within beta coverage. This time we're going to take a look at this stuff right here, Dungeon and Affix updates. Now, I want to keep in mind, just in case, before you guys comment and stuff, the perspective that I'm going to come at with mostly is like a kind of a semi-casual perspective. The most I do is Keystone Master. I haven't even hit that yet in this season 4 of Dragonflight. But I'll get to it. It's not that bad, but I don't really aspire for much more than that. So I'm going to come at it from that perspective and, share my thoughts on that. Feel free to agree, disagree, like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get right to it. Greetings! With the War Within beta now underway, we're excited to share additional updates regarding dungeons and the Affix system. By the way, I'm going to read through this and I'll react kind of as we go. So, Heroic and Mythic Dungeons. In Dragonflight Season 4, we experimented with our existing dungeon difficulty progression to offer additional endgame options for players who enjoy more methodical dungeon gameplay. This updated dungeon difficulty progression is also an opportunity for players that do enjoy Mythic Keystones to have a place to build mastery over dungeons before the pressures of a timer kick in. You can read more about those changes in depth. We've kind of been there already. We plan to continue this model of progression into the War Within with some exciting updates. So, let's go down the bullet points. Normal, the difficulty is unchanged. This difficulty always includes our 8 War Within dungeons, and of course there's also the follower dungeon difficulty that folks get to enjoy to start learning their classes, specs, and so on and so forth. For Heroic, the tuning and rewards of this difficulty are increasing to be equivalent to a baseline Mythic 0 in the previous system, so like Season 4. New mechanics and other adjustments from Mythic will not be present in this difficulty. This remains a queuable experience. Starting with Season 1 of the War Within, Heroic Dungeon difficulty will feature our roster of seasonal dungeons. Okay, so it remains a queuable experience. Sweet. Although let's keep in mind that from what they had said just the other day, they don't want heroic dungeons to be queuable during the preseason period. You'll be able to walk in there manually with friends or people from the group binder and whatnot, but you will need to do that manual, and it'll have a daily cooldown in that situation. I'm not sure if it'll mention it here, so. But yeah, starting with Season 1 of the War Within, Heroic Dungeon difficulty will feature our roster of seasonal dungeons. Now, I'm going to be a little bit curious, like, is it only going to feature the seasonal dungeons, or is it going to include like the War Within dungeons? Because that feels like, it feels like it kind of takes me away from some of that dungeon experience or some of that War Within experience, and it's limited to just this. But I guess maybe it's just for the sake of consistency, right? You know how people are going from heroic to mythic and then mythic plus, they're going to have those same dungeons. Maybe that's kind of their goal. And so I'm like, okay, sure, fine, I guess. And for Mythic, the tuning and rewards of this difficulty are increasing to the equivalent of a plus 10. That's nothing new. There are no timers, affixes, or limitations on changing specializations or, that same stuff. The goal is to create a mega dungeon-like difficulty for this experience. This difficulty should present a meaningful challenge and provide commensurate rewards without the pressure of the Mythic Plus system. Starting with Season 1 of War Within, Mythic difficulty will feature our roster of seasonal dungeons. Cool, we know that. Mythic difficulty will not be available until the War Within Season 1 begins. So, like I was talking about the other day, it looks like during the preseason, we'll be able to do like heroics daily. We need to walk in there manually. We can't queue for it. And Mythic difficulty won't be around, period. It's basically because of the rewards that are offered in this new version of Mythic difficulty. It's just too strong, so they're just going to hold off on it. But also, Mythic difficulty will have a daily lockout, changed from weekly in the previous system. Now that's cool. That's really cool. That's going to mean that folks who, for the most part, kind of live in this world of, just Mythic dungeons and that's it. They just want to have like a bit tougher of an experience, but nothing too tough or punitive with the timers. They'll be able to have that kind of thing to enjoy every day. So if they have a favorite Mythic dungeon that they want to run and they want to master it, they don't need to wait week after week after week in order to run it. They can just run it every day. And if anything, this will provide that additional bit of practice as well, because mechanically, Mythic difficulty dungeons are going to be the same. At least, the base mechanics and stuff, they'll be the same as Mythic Plus, and it'll give that greater opportunity. So I think that's pretty sweet. Seasonal dungeon roster. Ooh, here we go. For the heroic, mythic, and mythic plus difficulties in season 1 of War Within includes the following. So we got new one, new one, new one, new one. Grim Put to Hole. Woo! Oh boy. Necrotic Wake, which is okay. Mr. Trinity. Yeah, okay. Siege of Borals. I haven't done Siege of Borals. I've only done that like a handful of times during BFA. I myself barely did keys during BFA. These other ones, these two I did like quite a bit more. Grim Atoll, obviously haven't done, so that's going to be fun with the whole flying through and that thing. So that'll be great. Mythic Plus. Let's talk about this. The Mythic Keystone system will carry forward changes from Dragonflight Season 4 with updates to the position of affixes in the system and updated affix buckets. The Mythic Plus systems will have rewards up to level 10. Sounds familiar, with +2 starting from what would have been an 11. Okay, a +5 should be as hard as a 15. A 10 should be as hard as a 20. Okay, we intend to better align reward and difficulty increases in the Mythic Plus system by updating the introduction points of affixes. Oh boy, in season 1 of the War Within. Oh crap. Okay, so +2s are normal. You got Fortify and Tyrannical. +4s are when we're going to get a new set of passive affixes, and then +7s are where we're going to see bursting and bolstering and the level 7 affixes. So the level 7 affixes, they're back. We're going to get new level 4 affixes. It seems like we're probably going to learn what they are below. But it's not going to be like it's not going to be like the current season where you got the third affix at +10s and higher. So the old thing that I was saying about, after this level, that's for the competitive people, don't worry about that. No, it's going to be, it's going to be 3 affixes or whatever for everyone once again, if you want to get into that realm of, hey, I really want to, max out my hero gear. I want to start getting myth gear and max that stuff out too. If you want to play in that space, you're going to be doing basically 9s, which means you're going to be dealing with, again, all the affixes again, and the way that I'll present my affixes in the reminder video will change once again. Dungeon ratings should be equivalent to what they represent in the current system, because 8 dungeons, cool. There should be a smaller range of keystone levels to find groups for, and more meaningful progression between each level. Well, yeah, now that we're going from like these kind of compressed brackets, and we're still bringing back like the third affix at the level 7 level, yeah, we're going to see more meaningful progression and anger and what have you. So let's keep going. Affixes. Before we dive into the specifics of the new affixes, we would like to outline our goals and the purpose these affixes serve. Our overarching goal is to minimize the mechanical overlap between affixes and dungeon trash design in the current +4 affix bucket, so the middle thing. We aim to achieve this through a more passive approach, focusing on the following objectives. 1, to shift the source of challenge to the dungeon itself. A lot of folks were asking for that, by simplifying affix design and emphasizing creature abilities. Okay. Next is to reduce visual noise, nameplate clutter, and the cognitive load on players during trash combat, as in the over-reliance on like super extensive player profiles that show like every little thing that every mob does. So that's cool. And allow for varied and context-specific gameplay decisions depending on the dungeon that they're applied to. Additionally, these affixes will include a positive effect. Okay. Well, let me finish this paragraph. The aim of these positive effects is to highlight different damage types each week, allowing each specialization additional opportunities to excel during the season. Okay, so when I think positive effects, or at least when I would, don't worry, we'll see what's down here in a bit. When I typically hear about positive affixes, I'll hear from fans and critics that, no, we need something where it's like a kiss curse sort of thing, where it's like, you need to stand in the circle and you do like big damage or something like that. Or if you dodge this thing correctly, you do big damage. The small problem that I feel that I would have with affixes like that are, it's basically the same as negative affixes, where if you stand in fire, you take damage, or you die, or you do less damage, or you lose all your haste, like some of these other affixes that we've experienced. This, having these so-called positive affixes is basically the same thing, where if you miss the positive thing, then everyone gets mad because you missed it. You're bad. get out of my group. So that same sort of, not toxicity, but that same sort of reaction happens. But anyway, let's take a look at what they're talking about here. So these effects should feel like a bonus, offering an advantage for different damage profiles each week without being essential to complete a dungeon. Players will have an opportunity to flex towards different talents, gearing options, and consumables to capitalize on these effects. Different talents gear. Okay, so let's see what this is. So new affixes: Reckless, Thorned, Attuned, and Focused. So Reckless is non-boss enemies. So the trash that don't cast stuff without mana. Ignore 20% of your armor with their attacks, but their armor is reduced by 30%, and they take 10% increased arcane damage. So arcane mages, duh. Moon bears, boomkin, arcane shot. And then while I'm not really familiar with this, there's quite a few new consumables that are coming out that I think also provide like their own like different damage profiles, and that might help with that too. It's only 10%, so it's not the end of the world. But of course, if you opt to be like, well, let's just go through the rest of these, and then maybe we'll come back to this. Thorned: non-boss enemies without mana inflict. I guess all of them are non-boss trash enemies. Without mana, inflict physical damage to their attackers, so the tank when attacked, or basically everyone, but they take 10% increased holy and shadow damage. So yay, this is going to be like my favorite probably. Attuned: non-boss enemies with mana inflict more magic damage. Ooh, that's going to suck for like fortified, attuned, something or other, but they take 10% increased nature damage and 30% increased damage from bleeds. Feral Druids will love that one. Okay, and then finally, if there's focus, non-boss enemies with mana have 30% increased haste. Yay! But they take increased frost and fire damage. So I guess whoever's like spec for to be like a frostfire mage, they'll like double dip or something like that. Note that these tooltips indicate whether the affixes apply to creatures with or without mana. These affixes will not affect every creature. Okay. Oh. Okay, so it's not going to affect... Okay, so at first I thought it was going to be like all mobs, but it's not even going to be a whole bunch of them. Okay, this ain't so bad. I mean, I get the whole like seeing increased vulnerability depending on like the party's specialization. For some people it's going to be like, oh man, if I main as this sort of class, that means if it's not a reckless week, then it's like dead. I'm never going to get into groups. So there's always going to be that sort of social problem that players will blame Blizzard for. Again, my perspective is all borked because I'm like, oh, well, I'll just tell my guild, hey, can we go? Can we get people? And then I'll just take whoever, But I could definitely see how this will affect people mentally in the pug world, because they're going to feel like, oh, now I'm like the wrong thing. The one thing that I want to pay attention to are like the consumables that are available, which I don't know off the top of my head, but how will our talent specs and consumables and whatnot, how will that kind of change this? But again, because it's only like certain ads or certain mobs are going to be affected by this sort of thing, how much of a big deal is it going to be to super optimize for a reckless kind of run? We don't know. So let's move on. With our new passive affix bucket set to replace the current 4 affix bucket, the following affixes will be retired. Well, all of them are gone. No afflicted, no incorporeal. Entangling was cool because it was so easy, but keep entangling. So all of them are gone. All of the mid affixes are just retired, at least for now, and then we'll see what they do in the following season. Okay, that's kind of cool. So I despised incorporeal. That thing was ugh. Anyway, to match the number of affixes in our level 4 affix bucket and align with our affix goals in the War Within, we'll be retiring the spiteful affix for season 1. Okay. And the +7 affix bucket will include raging, bolstering, damn it, bursting, and sanguine, double damn it. Okay, so bolstering and sanguine survived. Whoop-de-doo. I would have... Sorry, spiteful haters. I would have taken spiteful over sanguine or bolstering. one of these I'd want to go. Probably Sanguine. Bolstering, I'm just like, I'm just kind of sitting there for a little bit longer, being like, come on, DPS, hop to. All right, and then trying to call in fortified affixes, we're still experimenting with how these affixes fit with our updates, which means, okay, that's just fluff right there, which means there is that possibility of just removing tyrannical and fortified, reducing some of that complexity. And then, Blizz, I'd say just do it, just to like see what happens. Give us one season, right? One season where we kind of like, okay, how does this feel? Is this cool? Is this not? Are we going to get bored? The answer is probably yes. But or can we like replace tyrannical fortified with like something a little bit different? And I believe that is the post. I have a feeling that a lot of folks are going to have very negative reactions, foot and mouth reactions to, notably, I guess, the new affixes that are like, hey, this isn't what we asked for. We wanted kiss curse affixes. We didn't want this thing where we feel like we need to be a certain class in order to excel at these weeks. No doubt that's going to be the attitude like early on, when people are like, okay, we don't know what's going on, but we might as well optimize and bring the best that we can, which means being extremely picky. But I have a feeling that this will level out because it's only 10% increased damage and all that. I don't see that as like a huge deal. I think I'll be a little bit scared of this one with the 20% increased magic damage, especially if you're doing like really, really high keys and whoever you're with isn't like fully on top of like, okay, we got to interrupt this really big magic uninterruptible AoE thing. Healer, you got to oh, everyone's dead. Oh, snap. So that one feels a little bit scary. This one feels a little bit scary for tanks. This one might feel a little bit scary for healers because people are going to be taking more damage, and then this one is just going to suck overall, especially for casters. If you're not CCing a bunch of casters, they're just going to go burr. Not having to deal with these affixes, cool. I mean, I would definitely take these over these behavior changing, these kind of distractions, which can be, really upsetting sometimes, and leave the distractions to this: raging, bolstering, bursting, sanguine. Bursting and the thorns thing might really suck. But so yeah, there might be like some vulnerable combos here. But I like the news overall. I guess for me the biggest minus is that if I did want to go for myth gear aspect, or what the new, I think it's gilded. If I want to go for like those high level crests, it's going to be like that much tougher for me. But you know what? At least right now, it's this season 4 of Dragonflight is making an example for myself that I don't, because I haven't done any high level keys at all, but I'm still able to get all my goals done. I don't really need to venture into that space in order to meet the goals that I want to reach. Now, of course, I'm not everybody, right? People want to aspire, and knowing that it's going to be that much harder to do in season 1 of War Within compared to season 4 of Dragonflight, I'm sure it's very discouraging. So definitely bitch about it, let your feedback be known. But that's my feedback, and those are my thoughts so far. So leave your thoughts in the comment below, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next thing. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.